Welcome, everyone. I am your host for the AEW Dynamite July 29, 2020 episode. The episode kicked off with the Dynamite theme song. That doesn't get played often these days, but here it was. Good stuff. I also noticed that Excalibur was not on commentary throughout the whole show. And I later come to find out that this may be due to some video that he was featured in during an angle about 15 years ago, mind you, where he uttered the N-word during a promo. Now, I also come to find out that he has since apologized for this years ago, but for some reason it just came to light now when some people already knew about this. And this goes to show how much this cancer culture that we live in, this cancel culture, has taken over. And you really aren't safe for anything that you did in the past. And what you've done in the past does not dictate who you are today. That's all I'll say on that, in most cases. The first match on the show was the Inner Circle versus the Best Friends and the Jurassic Express. Jericho, the demo god, graced us with his presence first. Aubrey Edwards was the ref for the match. This was a bit surprising to some because Rick Knox is usually the tag team specialist on the AEW referee squad. But I presume Aubrey Edwards was the ref because Jericho likes working with Aubrey, and he figured he can draw a lot of heat off of her when it comes to their interactions in his matches. And he's kind of right on that because they do make for a good pairing. Okay, Jericho immediately tagged out to start the match. Then Orange Cassidy goes at it with Hager for a bit. Jericho later shuts down Orange Cassidy's momentum. A bunch of the dudes then pile up on the outside of the ring, and one after another they go for dives. Of course, Marco has to get his stuff in the match, so Marco is later used as a weapon on the Inner Circle pile of guys outside the ring. And I note that I have a feeling that some folks will not take well to that spot because it was just a bunch of guys just standing around on the outside of the ring, obviously getting set up for this spot. It just takes some people out of it when they know guys are just standing around waiting for the other guy to dive on them. But nonetheless, it was a cool sight. Everyone then went for, the Jurassic Express and the Best Friends later in the ring, in the center of the ring, went for a hug to give Orange Cassidy a hug. But Sammy Guevara attempts to ruin this by diving onto the guys, but they all step out the way. Then they made Sammy pay by stomping him down a bit in the middle of the ring. Then, a little bit after this, Aubrey loses complete control of the match. Things get her way out of hand. Guys are all over the place. Stuff happening. I could not keep track of what was going on. So, I do not have complete notes on this match. I also noticed on commentary that JR seemed a bit irritated about the rules of the tag match. The match wasn't advertised as a tornado match, is what I got out of that. The match later on that night, was a tornado tag match, no rules. But this match should have rules, and he was obviously annoyed by this. I also noted that the match was a bit sloppy at this point. And I felt that everyone involved was just trying to do too much. If they kept it like a regular tag match, everyone stands in their corner, wait for a tag them in, then everyone will be able to get their stuff in a lot more organized fashion instead of everyone going bonkers, doing whatever, the Wild West in the ring. It just got to be a bit too much, and it could be hard to follow for a lot of people. Luchasaurus later gets the hot tag and clears the ring till Hager gets back in, and he then takes down. Then Luchasaurus then gets taken down by Hager with a clothesline, and then Orange Cassidy slips in to Superman punch Hager after this. Then later, Sammy hits his BTH finisher on Jungle Boy. Then Luchasaurus goes for the chokeslam to Sammy, but he dodged it. He got out of it. Sammy then went to the top rope, and Matt Hardy then appears to throw Sammy off the top rope, and Sammy suffered a roundhouse kick from Luchasaurus for the Jurassic Express and the Best Friends to get the win in the tag match. I'm afraid many people are going to think that this match made Aubrey look like a fool, because usually Aubrey is the most well-respected and well-liked referee out of all of them in AEW. But this just made her look a bit vulnerable out there with how lawless it seemed to be. And I just felt sorry for her, because I'm pretty sure she's going to face some of that criticism. But I still like Aubrey. It's not like we see these types of matches all the time. But next week, come to find out later on in the show that we were going to be getting even more of a big tag team match. A 12-man tag. Woo, that's going to be something. A 12-man tag. But as I said, the match was a bit sloppy, but it got better towards the end when things slowed down a little bit and not everyone was in the ring at the same time, etc. I also caught that when after the match was over, Matt was calling out Sammy, and he said, "Welcome back." He was yelling, "Welcome back" to Sammy Guevara. And this meant that the feud will continue. This also marked the debut of the real-life version of Matt Hardy, Matthew Hardy. As he told us on social media, he released a video saying that he was going to be himself. He gave up his other gimmicks because he expected to have a crowd of people chanting "delete, delete," etc. But that never happened because of the world that we're living in now. The virus took over. We get the new version of Matt, and that feud will continue. Since before Sammy was suspended, it was brewing, but now AEW is continuing the feud as they should. Next segment, we got a Mox promo. He said he tries to stay out of people's business. He thought the issue was supposed to be settled, and referring to Mox and Cage. He was mad that they screwed around with Darby, attacked him from behind last week, etc. Then he addressed Starks when he attacked Darby from behind, and that shot to Darby when Starks attacked him last week was a bit brutal. It sent Darby forward into the ropes. He slingshotted out the ropes, like a bad case of whiplash. Apparently, it was reported that Darby might have suffered a concussion, but he looked to be okay this week. And this episode was live, so he seems to be in good spirits. He is fine. Mox also said that he doesn't start fights, but he always finishes them. And that was a message to both Ricky Starks, Taz, and Brian Cage. Next up, we had the most anticipated match of the night, in my opinion, and it was my most anticipated match. We had Cody, the TNT champion, versus WARHORSE, the independent wrestling champion. And this match was a fine showcase for WARHORSE. I noticed that WARHORSE got pyro, and I wonder if that's a sign that he gets signed in the future, or they have already signed him, or they think highly of him enough to give him pyro that we may see him again in some capacity. I hope that is the case, because I think Warhorse can be money for AEW. He has a great character. He can talk, and he can wrestle. What more do you need? That's a star package right there. He's obviously going to get better as he goes. He's only 27 years old. I say give him a chance. But this match wouldn't have even happened if it wasn't for the fans willing it into fruition. That goes to show when the fans are passionate about something, AEW listens and they give it to us. And this is another clear example of that. The match starts off with arm holds. Warhorse then later kips up, but instead he kicks Cody a bit. You'd think he was going to kip, but instead he just knocked him, which is nice. Warhorse started working on Cody's left arm. Cody then rose out of the ring in frustration, and I noted that his anger is really getting to him. Warhorse pretty much had Cody's number most of this match. He had the advantage. He was thinking way ahead. Warhorse later gets a heavy clothesline on Cody, but Cody kicks out at 1. Then we went to break. We came back. I also noticed on Twitter that during this match, Danhausen was providing hilarious commentary. I don't know if you know Danhausen, but he is pretty close to Warhorse on the indie scene, and those two are like glue. They stick together like glue. And he was happy for his friend, his buddy, getting this opportunity on TV, prime time. We get back from the break. Cody goes for a figure 4, but Warhorse counters it. He flips Cody over immediately after Cody hits this figure 4. Now I notice Warhorse countered a lot of Cody's arsenal. Warhorse then hit a double stomp from the apron to Cody on the outside of the ring. He then hits a Macho Man-like elbow drop on Cody after they got back in the ring. Cody then grew more desperate by the minute. He got even more frustrated. You can see it on his face. And Arn Anderson had to calm him down a bit. Warhorse then went for the stomp again, but he hurts his legs in the process. Cody then gets a chop block to Warhorse's leg, and he pulls off another figure 4 leg lock. Warhorse later tapped after this, and Cody grew ever more desperate as the match went on. And I felt that this was a solid match. Warhorse got a nice showing, and I think he'll be back. I don't think this is the last time we see Warhorse in AEW, and I hope it's not the last time. The loss also protected Warhorse because he had no choice but to tap out in the figure 4 because his leg was hurt, injured a bit. Cody worked on it, and it was only logical that Warhorse tap because he had no choice. He was hurt. Otherwise, he probably would have flipped it again. Cody then gets ambushed post-match by the Dark Order. And before this, though, Warhorse was still in the ring. He saw the Dark Order was heading down to the ring, but Warhorse actually pushed Cody out the way, and Warhorse tried to fend off the Dark Order himself, but they got the better of him and kicked Warhorse outside of the ring. But the Dark Order then beat down on Cody a bit until he gets helped by none other than his real-life buddy, Matt Cardona, a.k.a. Zack Ryder of WWE fame. He made his debut in AEW, and this guy looks jacked, muscle-bound. People say he looked bigger than he did in AEW. And he showed a lot of intensity in his face, his mannerisms. When he hit his moves, all looked crisp. That sets up a match later next week. Well, Cody and Matt Cardona versus the Dark Orders, Silver and Reynolds, I believe. That's going to be on next week's episode. And some have even said that that's like the best booking Ryder has ever gotten since his days in WWE. Good stuff. Good debut. Looking forward to see what he can do in AEW. Next segment, Tony Schiavone was going to address us give us some details about All Out, but he got cut off by the Le Champion, Chris Jericho. Sammy G, during this bit, Sammy G called out Matt Hardy. He called him a son of a bitch. Jericho then gives Orange Cassidy a rematch 2 weeks from the night. When he beats him again, Jericho wants Orange Cassidy to give him $7,000 for his damaged jacket that he ruined with the orange juice a few weeks back. And next week on Dynamite, Jericho also challenged Orange Cassidy to a debate with a guest moderator. Whom that guest moderator is, we don't know. I don't know. We'll find out next week. The episode will be taped. JR goes, who wrote that? Who wrote that? He's talking about that whole segment. And that got a chuckle out of me. JR is a bit too real at times. He calls out things that he shouldn't. But sometimes it comes off hilarious. Next segment. Tony Schiavone has a contract signing segment with FTR, and they were with their legal representation. This came about. There was an exchange between Tony Khan and FTR on Twitter talking about, I believe it was Dax Harwood commented on the rankings, like how many people we have to beat to get top 5 in the ranks, because they are still unranked. And then Tony Khan chimed in with, sign the contracts and then maybe you get up there. So this is a play on that, I believe. We got some social media storytelling here, and I believe this segment hammered that home. In this contract signing, FTR wanted the 10-second rules enforced. This is all in their contract. And they spoke with Khan that they wanted Tag Team Appreciation Night, and they wanted to host it on August 12th. Tag Team Appreciation Night will be August 12th and hosted by FTR. After this, Adam Page then barges in with drinks in hand. He offers them up to Arn and FTR, and they toasted with the Hangman. Some believe this could be a sign of the next Horseman faction. It could include FTR, Adam Page, and Shawn Spears or Cody. We don't really know where it's going. Now, who could it be? Before we were speculating that it would be Cody, FTR, and Shawn Spears, and that was that. But this could open up a lot more possibilities now. I don't know about turning Adam Page heel, though. He's been a good face. He's been the most over guy, well, pre-pandemic with the crowds. But we'll see where it goes. Next up, we got a Dark Order recap and the match with the tag team title match that included Adam Page, Kenny Omega versus the Dark Order. As the Dark Order made their entrance, Tony Schiavone went, "Is that Anna Jay?" And then JR said, "How did I miss that?" JR really is a horn dog. He loves the women, and so do I. Good stuff. Page gets the match started by himself. Before Omega could even make his own entrance, he took his sweet time. Uno later blocked Stu from hitting the ropes, but took a boot from Omega instead afterward. Colt Cabana was also on commentary, and he stated that he's not in the Dark Order. He's just hanging out right now. Evil Uno is then taking chops from both Kenny Omega and Adam Page. Then there's I noticed there's a little bit of angst between Omega and Page, a bit. I don't think Page is over what Kenny did a few weeks ago when it came to the beer pouring and stuff like that. I also noticed that Brody Lee was standing in front of Anna Jay, not far from the announce booth at this point. Anna Jay was in like a masquerade type mask. And with the Dark Order get up a little bit. I liked it. I mean, they had her face covered, but not all the way. Her face wasn't fully covered, which is good because you don't want to cover her face. She has a pretty face. You want people to see it. We later went to break, came back. Omega and Page were double teaming the Dark Order. Page later tagged in Kenny. Omega went for a V-trigger, but Stu stepped out of the way and gets tossed to the outside. Uno then hopped up to the top rope and hit a senton on Omega for the near fall. Later, the Dark Order double teamed Omega and Page for another near fall. Kenny then snapdragons Uno, but gets splashed on by Stu Grayson afterwards. Brody Lee then at this point is visually nervous. He was pacing back and forth and just looking worried. Omega and Page then hit the last call V-trigger buckshot combo for the win. Brody Lee then after this ordered Colt to the back. Brody Lee was not happy. He also told Anna Jay to leave as well. I like this added story element because he didn't want his newer recruits to see what the Dark Order is really about. He didn't want Colt and Anna Jay to see this ferocious side. He wants it all to be all. He wants it to seem all like, everything's good, everything's fine, everything's peaceful. We're not bad guys, stuff like that. They want to rub them the wrong way. They want to lose these recruits, so he ordered them to leave. While the big stuff is going to take place. He's going to beat down these guys, mob style. After that, Brody Lee then brings out his papers. He has his papers in hand, and he leveled Evil Uno with the papers. And this is a callback to BTE. The Dark Order does skits on BTE that revolve around these pieces of paper that Brody Lee would just have. He would have them, he would ball them up, or just throw them in the face of any Dark Order member that failed him at that point. And it made its way onto national TV, which is nice. That's a nice little element to give the Dark Order some character, a bit more character. Heyman Page has to pay per Brody Lee. Brody Lee said this on the mic. The Creepers then surrounded the ring. FTR then comes to the rescue and knocks Brody Lee over the head with a beer cooler. And the Dark Order backs down later after this. Brody Lee could do nothing but laugh. Because Brody Lee knows what's going to be coming to the Elite. He's going to want to pound him into the dirt. So this was a nice match. It was definitely better than the 10-man tag to open the show. Nice title match. And we got the continued story elements of Colt, Cabana, is he in the Dark Order or not? And the newer added element of Anna Jay being in there. But they didn't really mention her much on the commentary, being in the Dark Order. Interesting. We shall see what they do with this going forward. Next segment, we had Britt Baker passing notes to Tony Schiavone. And this one said she had something to say. She then went in on Swole and gave her a shot at Britt. She gives Swole a shot at her, but only if she beats an opponent of Britt's choosing. I think this could be an opportunity for AEW to debut another woman that we haven't seen yet in a non-squash variety. I think this talent, or whomever they use whomever they use to face Big Swole, should be someone that it should be a competitive match. We need to level up the women's division. They need to go out and get women that can actually wrestle good matches. I know a bunch of them can't travel right now, but what's stopping you from grabbing some nice indie talent that can work? Nothing. Nothing stopping you. These newer talents should not cost that much to have their services, in my opinion. There's tons of good workers out there. Go look for them. Go get them. That's all I ask. Next up, we had a video package for Diamante. She says she'll get it done by any means necessary. Even if she has to give her last breath in the match, that's what it's got to be. I thought it was nice that Diamante got a video package to show off a bit more of her personality and her promo skills, her mic skills, and I thought it was decent. It was good. Then we got the match, the women's world champion Hikaru Shida versus Diamante. Shida, I noticed that Shida had on her Tifa gear again. She had on different gear last week. She went back to her Final Fantasy gear this night. She went for a handshake, but Diamante refused, and we started the match. Diamante showed her aggressiveness as both had a tussle in the middle of the ring with fists and strikes. They both rolled over and struck each other multiple times. Shida later sets up Diamante on the outside barricade and went for her knee strike and connected. She had Diamante draped over the barricade where the crowd was, and she hit that strike, the knee strike. It was also announced during this match that the tag team tournament, the Daily Draw, will kick off on YouTube on Monday at 6 Central, 7 Eastern. And I thought that was interesting. I thought some may criticize this because it's going to be only on YouTube and not where most people can see it, which is on TV. But it should still be good. We'll see what they're really capable of. It kicks off Monday next week. We'll see if people watch it. Hopefully they do. Later in the match, both ladies delivered chops in the corner of the ring. Diamante later delivers a cutter stunner maneuver. And a little bit after this, Diamante then went for a code red, but it was botched because it was close to the ropes. Shida later won the match with a knee strike, and she is on quite the roll, I've noticed. She is like, her record is either 14-1 or 18 or something like that. But she has the most wins in the women's division so far. After this match, the Daily Draw rules were explained. Among them, it's a random draw. You must draw a color, and that determines the team you're with. And the cup was also shown off after this announcement was made. The next segment, this took place backstage. Nyla and Vicky addressed us with the color that they drew, and it was later found that the next woman who drew the same color turned out to be none other than Ariane Andrew. Apparently she will be with Nyla in this tag team tournament. Ariane Andrew apparently is a former WWE superstar by the name of Cameron. And she apparently teamed with Naomi as the Funkadactyls or something like that. I wasn't watching back then. I wasn't watching wrestling back then, so I had no idea. I had to look it up, and that's what I come to find out. We shall see. I heard some iffy things about her when it comes to her in-ring ability. Back then, at least, she didn't appear to have much ring wrestling skill. But things change, people change, time goes by. Maybe she learned a thing or two since then. We'll see. Next segment, we had MJS addressing us with the State of the Industry address. This was promo of the night, promo of the year thus far. This was MJF's best promo to date in AEW. It was very good, and I predict a lot of people will be talking about it. It's good stuff, and it had a lot of truths. It's hard to root against a guy when he's absolutely correct. And I absolutely would not mind an MJF World Championship reign in AEW. He would then become the first ever AEW homegrown talent to be world champion. And I believe that is going to happen at All Out. Moxley is dropping the title at that pay-per-view. That's what I think. MJF came out to his own podium adorned with Burberry as well. We then went to break, came back. MJF said he would like to thank Tony for the opportunity to speak. He went in on Jon Moxley and said he's not my champion. He's not his champion. MJF later challenged Moxley for the world title. Finally. We finally will be getting that match at All Out, just as I predicted, because it was only logical, because MJF is undefeated in singles action, and he is ranked number 2. No, he's ranked number 1. He's the number 1 contender for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. It's only right. Next segment, we had Darby Allin and Jon Moxley versus Brian Cage and Ricky Starks in a tornado tag team match. It was a no DQ match. Darby's music played, but he didn't come out, perhaps due to what happened last week. Mox then made his entrance from the crowd steps. He has to go it alone, they said, and it plays into his lone wolf-like character, I noticed. Later we cut backstage. Taz was with Starks and Cage. Taz wondered where Mox's buddy Darby is. Taz said, "Stand in front of me," before we pissed some people off. And I think that was in reference to what a lot of people have been saying online, that Taz should be in the back cutting the promo while Brian Cage, etc., should be in the front. And he went in on them by saying that. He took a shot at the naysayers. Ricky Starks is then handed a microphone, and he says he's young, handsome, and what your baby mama wish you were. When a man whom choked out an Olympic gold medalist says, "Get him," I get him. I got him. He says he's digging 2 graves tonight. And I thought that Ricky Starks' promo was great. The guy can speak and he can wrestle. That's a good package to have. He has a good look, he can wrestle, and he can talk. That's what you want in your future main eventers. Good stuff from him. I like that promo. People say Starks reminds them of a young Rocky Maivia, of a young Rock. I can see it. He definitely has the charisma. Just see what he does with it going forward in AEW. After Starks, Taz, and Brian Cage's backstage segment, they head out to the entrance ramp. And what do you know? Darby then leaps onto both Starks and Cage, and it was thought to be a trap. Mox, etc., led Ricky Starks and Brian Cage into a trap to start the match. Cage and Mox goes at it outside the ring. Then Darby attempts to dive on him, but he's caught by Brian Cage. Then Mox dives on both Cage and Darby to save Darby, to knock Cage down. We went to break later, then came back as Darby gets worked over by Cage and Starks. Mox uses his chair to great effect on Cage, and Darby then hits a stunner and gets a spear from Starks for his troubles. Brian Cage and Ricky Starks both hit a double-teamed Alabama slam onto the trash can to Jon Moxley. Darby and Mox then they showed great teamwork throughout this match. Darby then goes after the bicep of Cage with the trash can. Taz had to admit that it's smart. That's smart what Darby was doing. Darby later pulls a tack-filled skateboard from under the ring and hits it on Starks. He dives from the top rope with the skateboard in tow and sticks Ricky Starks in his back with the tacks that were attached to this skateboard. Darby later pulls. The blood was then shown dripping from Starks' back. Darby got the win after this for the team. And this was a good victory. And it protected Ricky Starks and Brian Cage because Ricky Starks had all that pain. He was writhing in pain from the thumbtacks as blood was pouring from his back that he didn't have the strength or was even thinking of kicking out of this pin because he was in pain. He couldn't. He was spasming all over the place. He was screaming. He was hurt. He couldn't do it. So that protected him in the loss. It also protected Brian Cage because Cage was not pinned. He wasn't a part of that. So both still look strong in defeat. And Darby and Mox look strong with their win. After it was shown, Ricky Starks was slithering away with his bloody back heading up the stage. He took one for the team. That was a brutal spot. Even Cody's didn't look that bad. Cody wasn't leaking, but Ricky Starks sure was. Darby, then it was announced that Darby will face Moxley for the world title. I think it'll be his first because he fought Moxley before in a one-on-one match, but he lost, but it wasn't for the title. This time it is for the championship, which should be interesting. I don't think he's going to win, but he should still look good. And I think it's going to play a story role as well because I don't think it's going to be a clean win or loss for either of them. Overall, I thought it was a solid episode of Dynamite. The first half was a bit sloppy, particularly that tag match, the 10-man tag. But after that, the second half, everything else was pretty good. The second half was even better than the first half of Dynamite. And that will do it for your AEW Dynamite July 29, 2020 review. I'd like to thank you for watching / listening. And I will be back probably after this with your ratings report. And as I said, we're back. The ratings are in for last night's episode of Dynamite. It brought in 773,000 viewers with a 0.30 in the 18 to 49 demographic, while NXT brought in 707,000 viewers and a 0.18 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic. NXT lost this week, but they were able to pull in over 100,000 more viewers than they did last week. This is pretty good. Good numbers considering that sports are back. Baseball, etc. is back. So we have that. Compared to last week's Dynamite pulled in 845,000 viewers with a 0.32 rating in the 18 to 49, while NXT brought in 615,000 viewers with a 0.17 in the 18 to 49 demographic. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.